And Lake has said elsewhere that when the conversation got political, he left the room because Berger was the political guy. So according to my source, those were the only three people in the family quarters that night. At 3:00, Tony Lake got the call from the Clinton to and what he said was dust off the contingency plans. And the contingency plans meant retaliation against Iran. And that's where that stood. And I know from other interviews that Clinton gave at that time, one with Taylor Branch, a historian that was not revealed for another 10 years, was that he was telling Branch that it was likely a missile attack by Iran. That was about a week or 10 days after the crash. That was the word I'm sure he was spreading locally to keep people at ease, off balance, and to justify the cover-up. Because if they thought, let's say if they only merely thought Iran had done this, but couldn't prove Iran had done this, the notion of retaliating against Iran without firm evidence, there's good reason not to,
I tell you, I've been wanting to do a TWA 800 show for a while. As a matter of fact, I had an attorney on. I forget his name right now, but he sued and he won in the case. I think his name is Clark, right? John Clark?
John Clark, yeah, right. John's a good friend.
Yeah. Oh, he's great. I love him.
Yeah.
But I tell you, Jack, you're my new friend because I love you. Because I love the way you know every little detail. Like it's right at the tip of your fingertips. I got a guy that knows the story backwards and forwards for years and years. I'm going to take a commercial break. We're with Jack Cashill. The latest book is TWA 800, The Crash, the Cover-Up, and the Conspiracy. We'll be right back after these messages. You can find Jack at his website, cashill.com. And we'll be right back after this. And now a word from our sponsors. Did you know that 30% of all people on online dating websites and personal ads are either married or in a monogamous relationship? 30%. If you suspect that your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend may be cheating online, go to emailrevealer.com. And our online infidelity investigation. You give us their email address, and we can trace it back to online personal ads, dating sites, and social networks. We can even expand the investigation and find them cheating on escort service sites or even porn sites if they're registered to porn sites and swinger sites. So check out emailrevealer.com if you suspect your spouse is cheating, and check out our online infidelity investigation. William Ramsey is a producer here at the Opperman Report, and he's just come out with a new book, Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. Now, he just sent me a copy of this book. Oh, boy, it's about 2 inches thick, and there's a chapter on just about everybody in this book that you can imagine. The Beatles, and Jack Parsons, everybody's in here. It's incredible. And I definitely recommend this book. There's a bunch of pictures in here, too, of all these people and different chapters and information. Anton LaVey and people I've never heard of, too. There's a whole bunch in here. JFC Fuller. I don't know who he is. But it's great stuff by our producer here, William Ramsey. So check out Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. You can find it on Amazon.com, or you could find it in the Opperman Report.com bookstore. We have an urgent bulletin. It seems that the group Strawman is still on the loose. It has been confirmed that Strawman are Canadian, okay, and that authorities are asking people to stay indoors, lock your doors and windows until this group can be dealt with. You could find more information about this group of Canadians, at strawmanmusic.com. You can have your ad played here. Okay, we're looking for sponsors. Okay, in fact, we desperately need sponsors right now to take this show to the next level. So you can have your your ad played here, read live, like I'm doing now, so artfully. Or we can even work up a little jingle for you with some music and stuff like that and play it here. You have no idea how inexpensive it would be to have your ad played on the Opperman Report on 7 stations live Friday night and another 7 stations live on Saturday night, plus replayed every day of the week on different stations. And then archived on YouTube, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and all different kinds of podcasts, Pod This and Podbean, all different kinds of places who archive the show for us. And on those archives, your ad would play indefinitely, forever. You also get a little banner on OppermanReport.com. You get a mention on the air, you get a little interview on the air, and all kinds of fun stuff if you sponsor Opperman Report. We have an opportunity to get this show on a major AM/FM station in California. We've been approved. So if you want to sponsor us into that, so incredibly inexpensive that your ad would be heard by the range covers 5 million people in population where your ad would be broadcast, and all these other stations would be thrown in for free. So really affordable prices to sponsor OppermanReport.com. Get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You can get a copy of that book at emailrevealer.com, or you can get a copy of that book now. It's back up on Amazon.com. How to Become a Successful Private Investigator by Ed Opperman. And this book has been updated a little bit from the previous book that we had that was available to our wonderful listeners. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. Call dropped during the commercial with John Cashill, so I got to pull him back up here so we can get him on the line. Good old John Cashill. Find his website is cashill.com, and this book, the one we're talking about today, is the latest one, TWA 800, The Crash, The Cover-Up, and The Conspiracy. But like I said, he's got several of these books. If we can't pick them up right away, it's only another half hour. We can reschedule it and just edit it right in. But hopefully he'll pick up unless there's some. Let me take a look and see if he's online. Yeah, it looks like now it says offline. Oh, boy. Hey, let's try him on the phone. Maybe he got sick of me. Hung up. You never know, right? Okay, let's try this. Hey, here we go.
Yeah, I think I seem to have lost my internet connection.
Yeah, okay. I hope that at least you're alive. I was worried about you. I thought maybe I didn't catch you.
Right. I'm just sitting here, and then I see the Skype cut out, and then I go to look for your phone number, and I can't get on my own email account. So for whatever reason, I just cut out in the middle here.
Okay. Would you have a problem finishing on the phone like this right now?
No.
Okay.
No problem.
A couple of questions for you then. Okay.
Sure.
You hear these wild conspiracy theories, and I think this is a wild one, okay? But I like it because since you're like an expert on this, right? Not like an expert, you're definitely an expert. That there was a legitimate assassination attempt on a second plane. There was another plane that was coming behind it, and that's the one that they wanted to take out. What do you think of that one? Did I lose you? Jack? That was weird. The line's still open. Let's try calling him again. That sucks. Because we're running out of time. But the book is TWA 800, The Crash?
Yes, here we are.
Okay, great. So, Jack, I was asking you about kind of a bizarre conspiracy theory.
No, right. I heard that question before. For something, I think the NSA must be interfering with our communication here. But what happened was this, and here's what gave people reason to think that might have been true, is that the Flight 800 was carrying a load of corneas for transplant purposes to France.
Okay.
And so there's a particular term for, it's like a life flight or something. They get priority. They get to jump the queue. Because of the time-sensitive nature of their containers. And there was an El Al plane in the queue, and they got jumped. So people were thinking that maybe it was an intentional hit aimed at the El Al plane but that Flight 800 caught it instead. But it's just one of those things. I talked to the pilot who was queued up behind 800. He was a TWA pilot flying to Lisbon. So he explained exactly what happened.
Was there anybody on that El Al plane that would have been worthy of assassination attempt?
No one on either a Flight 800 or the El Al plane deserved his or her own missile, which differs that plane from the one that carried Ron Brown to Croatia. But that's another story for another day.
Oh, I can't wait to get you back on that one, because that's a fascinating story. Ron Brown had a patent on somebody's DNA on a guy in the rainforest. Did you ever hear that?
No.
Oh, it's fascinating. I don't know what the hell's behind that. Okay, what was the story about Pierre Salinger and all this?
Well, it's kind of a bizarre story, but Pierre Salinger, for those who don't remember, was the legendary press secretary to JFK. He was a larger-than-life figure.
Yeah. And
I think he had a French mother or whatever, but he had, spent a lot of time in France. I met him sometime, I think in the 80s when he was either ambassador, I think he may have been ambassador of France, America's ambassador. He was U.S. senator for a while, he was a Democrat, big international public relations honcho reporter. Well, about 2 or 3 months after the crash, I know all the principals involved. I've talked to them all. He got wind of the fact that actually his information wasn't wrong. He simply wasn't sophisticated enough to relay it. But like the day or two after the November election, with the Clinton successfully back in the White House, he held a press conference in Cannes, France, and explained that, in fact, that the U.S. Navy had accidentally shot down the plane. And some of his information was very good. I know his sources. I know how he got the information through a couple of pilots and air traffic controllers. So it was legitimate information. Simply, he wasn't prepared to answer the kind of tough questions that they were willing to ask him. I'm not sure why he went out on a limb like that. I thought, I admire him for doing it. Needless to say, the New York Times and the FBI conspired to just humiliate him. There were 4 articles, headlined articles in the New York Times just in the month of November 1996, questioning Salinger's sanity. Was that moon landing staged in the Houston studio, Pierre? That kind of questions, So it was, but what happened, and I've talked to several people who said, boy, if they could do that to Salinger, what could they do to me? People with information. I've talked to literally scores of whistleblowers, would-be whistleblowers from inside that investigation. Everyone I talked to believes it's cover-up. But they were sobered up by that smackdown of Pierre Salinger. They were sobered into silence, for a whole lot of them.
Yeah, a lot of young kids listen to the show. Salinger was legendary. He was Camelot.
Yes.
Legendary.
Right. No, right. Yeah. To take down Salinger was, it's hard to even think of a comparable figure today, a comparable gravitas who could be pulled down so dramatically and so thoroughly the way they did to Salinger.
And the conclusion that the mainstream press came to was that he was duped by an internet posting,
and that's when they began the, I think they called it, as late as 10 years later, saying the Pierre Salinger syndrome. And this goes back to the whole notion of fake news that, I read it on the internet, it must be true,
Right.
And so the major media from that day on, even before then, were absolutely trashing any information that was conveyed on the internet, no matter how legitimate it was. What happened with Salinger is that there was a small discussion group of serious aviation professionals who were evaluating the evidence, and they had vowed among themselves not to let this get beyond their group. Well, one guy was indiscreet. The information got out, made its way to French intelligence. They lost, 40 of their own citizens. And then it got to see Salinger, who was sort of a liaison between the French and American governments, and he went public with it, so.
That's interesting. Did any foreign governments come with a public report, what their conclusion was?
The French were the ones who got closest. I went to a press conference, a small conference in Paris about 10 years ago, met with a bunch of French journalists who had taken an interest in it. Paris Match probably did the best reporting on it. But the French government did not get involved in any significant way. So the story didn't